Hi, I'm Dan Herbert, course developer and instructor at Point Blank. In this video we're going to take a closer look at the Perform section of Form. This tutorial video gives you a flavour of what you can expect on our music production courses in London, Los Angeles and online. Find out more about our courses at www.pointblankmusicschool.com. When playing around with Form, you'll end up creating loads of cool stuff, and as always get in the habit of saving as a preset. The snapshot system has been streamlined within Reactor 6.0.3, which means you don't need to go into edit mode, and your presets are stored locally rather than within the ensemble. So to store, just click User, and then Add, just name it, and hit return. That's now stored. So in the previous video in this series we created a funky pattern using the motion curve editor. And what can be quite cool is creating subtle or not so subtle variations on these and then recording these within the structure of your track or when playing live. And this is where the Perform section comes in and is basically a preset system within each snapshot and allows you to store 12 different variations on your sound. It stores all parameter and effect settings but does not affect the imported sample. You can see I've already created 5 variations on this sound, and we can also use the Perform section to stack up sounds, but we'll come to that later. So if I hold a note, I can then recall these just by clicking with my mouse. Or what we can also do is recall these using the MIDI keyboard. Now I've loaded up Form into Complete Control, and you can see if you look at the keyboard, I've got these purple keys here which allows to play, and up here in this octave we have the Perform section. So when you enable this keyboard icon, you see it's indicating I've got 5 different presets here. So if I hold the note down, I can recall each of these variations just by playing the actual remote section here. If we want to, we can move where that is just by clicking here, and we can then move the control octave up or down however you want it to go. So if you want to create more variations, then what you need to do is to choose a slot, copy that slot, and then just click, and that will paste in the settings, and then we can create some variations here. So let's try this, and as you add, so again copy this one, paste it in, you'll see the slots being added to the actual keyboard. And again we can just play with this. Let's check this out, and if you want to, you can preview them live. And it automatically stores whichever slot you've actually got selected, so be aware of that. So if we change this now, that has now changed that first slot. So the other situation where the Perform section is important is when layering up sounds. You can stack up to 4 different layers when you switch the voice mode to multi-mode, although the number of layers you hear does also depend on the number of voices you've set to the right. But for now, let's recall a preset called Complexia. So you can hear it's quite a complex sound, hence the name. And if you look here in the Perform section, or you can see on the Complete Control keyboard, you can see there's 4 layers to the sound. So to switch to multi-mode, you'll find the modes up here. So I can go to single, so that's the first layer. I can use my mouse to jump to the second layer, or I could use my keyboard, that's the third layer, and that's the 4th layer. Okay, so all the parameters are independent, also effects as well. So it's essentially as though you've got 4 synthesizers within one. Okay, let's switch it back to multi-mode, and then you can hear all those layers playing at the same time. So let's create our own layered sounds. So I'm going to come back to the Form directory, samples, reset the sound, and then drag in this stacked saw. There we go. I'm going to copy the sound across. For some reason I need to copy that slot back. Anyway, and then let's edit this second layer. So at the moment I'm in single mode, so put that up the octave. So to hear both those sounds at the same time, go into multi-mode. And there we can hear the pitch of those separated by an octave. Let's copy again. And I tend to find more successful in editing to make whichever slot you're editing the master. Okay, just by double clicking. I tend not to use the set button, but you can click on set and choose it, or just double click. Right, let's push this up the octave here. I'm just going to make this a nice bright sound, so and then just pull down the sustain. So we've got a kind of plucky texture to it. So now I've gone back to making the number 1 slot master. I can't hear that third layer. And the reason for that is I need to increase the number of voices up here. Just click on it, you don't need to drag. And there we've got a stack sound comprised of 3 voices. So setting a slot to a master impacts on how it plays depending on the number of voices. It's also useful when you're setting up effects. So whichever slot is designated as the master, those effects will be used on all the sounds. Although you're restricted to only using 4 slots simultaneously, you're free to copy them and then set up different effects on them. For example, I can then set up on this one like a reverb. Let's make that a bit more obvious. And on this one, delay. So I've got the same sound but with different effects. And as we've seen before, you can enable the keyboard mode, and we could then choose the different effects just using the remote octave part of your keyboard. So the other thing to be aware of when using multi-mode is polyphony in the number of voices. So at the moment it's set to 3. So I play 1 note, that's fine. If I play 2 notes, okay, that's basically playing back 6 voices. The limit for form is 8. So if I now play 3 notes, you can hear it cycling round. So just bear that in mind. So depending on the number of voices, if you are in poly mode and you're trying to play a chord, you might find certain sounds drop out. The other control here, which is worth mentioning, is spread. And that basically detunes the voices against each other. This parameter is also available in unison mode. So single mode, go to unison. So again, we get these kind of fatter textures, and the amount of voices you can specify here between 2 to 4. So hopefully this short series has given you a better understanding of form. And remember, you can learn many more music production techniques on the courses we offer at Point Blank in London, Los Angeles and online. Just head to pointblankmusicschool.com to find out more.